This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Khalil Shabazz, where you can make a one-time donation or a monthly donation starting at $1.
Hey guys, Khalil Shabazz, author of the book, Why Do Black People Religiously Vote Democrat? Now, out of all of my surveys, interviews, all of my questionnaires that I've ever done in researching that very question, why is it that black people religiously vote Democrat? Without a doubt, the most common answer I receive is because the Republican Party is racist.
I don't feel no ways tired.
You must be out of your goddamn mind.
What would be a case of somebody trying to sound black? Could you give an example?
You know, like, I know they don't mean any harm, but they don't realize how ignorant it is when trying to have that black voice that some whites try to do, that they really don't do well.
Now, of course, I follow up with, but it was the Democrats who was pro-slavery. It was the Democrats who created the KKK. It was the Democrats who was pro-Jim Crow and pro-black codes and pro-segregation. Why do you not identify the Democrats as the racist party? Undoubtedly, the most common answer that I get to that question is the Republican Party and the Democrat Party switched. Now, the first time I heard this, I thought it was absolutely absurd.
You must be out of your goddamn mind.
I mean, how do you get these people on opposite ends of the ideological spectrum to just flip like that? It makes no sense.
That does not make sense.
All of these people believe that actually happened, but none of them can sufficiently explain the who, what, where, when, and why of something of that magnitude actually taking place. Now, to be clear, the party switch chapter is the most important chapter of my entire book. Quite honestly, it's several chapters, right? It has to be several chapters simply because this particular topic is so vast, it's so wide, it's so convoluted. So much of that information had to be researched, dissected, cross-referenced, and documented just to get to the bottom of things. Now, in researching the party switch narrative, I discovered that people tend to fall in one of two camps when they get around to actually pointing to a point in time in history when this actually happened. One camp says that it happened when the Dixiecrats joined the Republican Party. This would have been 1948 or sometime afterwards. The second camp will point to Richard Nixon, Barry Goldwater, and the Southern Strategy. This would have taken place sometime in the 1960s. Now, one of the things that makes this so hard to confirm is that with all of the people who subscribe to this belief, none of them can agree on when it actually happened, nor can they agree on who actually was the proponent of it, who actually started it, or even what was the cause of it, what was the impetus for such a phenomenon. They can't agree on when it happened, nor can they agree on who's responsible. However, one thing that they can agree on is the Republican Party ends up in both scenarios as being the racist party.
How convenient.
Everyone agrees on where we ended up, but no one can explain how we got here.
That does not make sense.
To truly investigate the whole party switch narrative, I had to spread it out over several different chapters. One chapter will only deal with the Dixiecrats joining the Republican Party and that entire narrative, how it started, what happened in the middle, and where it actually ended up. A subsequent chapter will only deal with Richard Nixon, Barry Goldwater, and the Southern Strategy. Again, how it started, what happened during the interim, and where it ended up. Many of you may be wondering right about now, where did I get my information? What are my sources? And that's a good question. That's a very fair question. Well, the first thing I can tell you is that I did a hell of a lot of reading. I'm talking all types of historical documents.
Yo, nigga, your brother told us how you be all into reading and shit. Hey, that's some real good shit, my nigga, for real. Congratulations, nigga.
Did you just congratulate me for reading?
From congressional records, all the way to campaign literature, from political biographies to newspapers and textbooks. I even watched several documentaries that were made by PBS, the History Channel, as well as actual governmental documentaries presented by the Library of Congress. Now, all of that information had to be ferreted out. It had to be researched. It had to be verified. It had to be cross-referenced, just to make sure that what I was coming across was actually accurate. Now, because of the topic at hand, I'm only concerned with the Lower South and the Upper South, those states that used to belong to the Confederacy, plus a few other states that sympathize with the Confederacy. Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia. And the time frame I'm concerned with is 1948 to 1980. Within those bracket years, there's enough time for anything regarding the Dixiecrats to actually happen and take place, as well as anything regarding Nixon, Goldwater, and the Southern Strategy to actually take place. Now, for those 30 some odd years, just to give you an idea of how many people I actually researched, I looked at every single Senate seat for each of those 14 states, spanning 30 some odd years. I followed every House of Representatives who sat in the House at for each one of those states over those 30 some odd years. I did the exact same thing for the governorships. I also did the exact same thing for the state representation, the state Senate and the state House of Representatives, for each of those 14 states over those 30 some odd years. Lastly, I also looked at how each of those states voted for the president from 48 to 1980. Now, I took all of this information and I had to quantify it, right? I filtered it all down and I cross-referenced it by politician, the state that they represented, with the time frame that they were actually in office. And I cross-referenced all of that information with each politician's personal biography, social affiliations, not only just political affiliations, but things that they've done, their upbringing, and their overall ideological belief system. And I took all of that information and I compared it to what was happening in the political sphere, and I looked to see what was the byproduct of all of that information in society. By doing that with so much detail, I was able to see who actually flipped parties. I was able to see which seat actually flipped parties. I was actually able to see which state actually flipped parties. And I was actually able to see when all of these changes took place. Once this book comes out, from that point on, there will be a full accounting of what actually happened and who actually did what. Did the Democrat Party actually switch places with the Republican Party? Did the party switch actually happen?
Good shit, homie. Word, you know what I mean? You know that reading shit, you know what I mean? It's hard, son. Word, you know what I mean? Word, you know what I mean? Especially when them books be, you know what I mean? You know, real thick and heavy like, you know what I mean? Word, you know what I mean?
And there you have it. Now, the next video, part 2, will only focus on the change of the Dixiecrats. The Dixiecrats leaving the Democrat Party and then allegedly going into the Republican Party. Did that actually happen? Did it not actually happen? Who actually changed? Who did not change? What's the actual facts? That will be in the following video. I hope you stick with me. I appreciate you for watching. I'm Khalil Shabazz, author of the book, Why Do Black People Religiously Vote Democrat? I'm signing out, and I'll see you in the next video.